I'm Gregg Mansfield. I'm the chair of the Midtown Ventura Community Council. We're going to start the evening with Congressman Salud Carbajal, who is fresh off an election from Tuesday, and I'm assuming he's probably still catching up on some sleep from that. So just to do a couple quick house items before we start is please treat our guests with dignity and respect and strive to make our meetings a comfortable environment to learn and share new ideas and knowledge. Please mute your microphone to better hear the speakers. If you're not a member of the Midtown Ventura Community Council, I encourage you to go to midtownventura.org and sign up for to be a member. Joining is free, and you'll get our monthly newsletter. And I'll put a link in the chat in a few moments. So, as I said, fresh off winning re-election on Tuesday night, Congressman Carbajal is represented for District 24, that includes parts of Ventura County, all of Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. I think he would probably argue that he represents the best surf spots and probably the best vineyards in the country. So as with that going on, he was first elected in 2016 and has won re-election 3 times now. He serves on the Committee of on Armed Services, the Committee on Agriculture, and the Committee on Transportation Infrastructure. I'm sure that's probably just the highlights of it. So Congressman will take questions at the end of the presentation. So you can put them in the chat or raise a hand and we will call on you. So Congressman, can you please take it away?
Thank you, Greg, for your invitation to join the Midtown Ventura Community Members meeting today. I also want to thank your Vice Chair, Eric Berg, and Secretary Sherry Egbert for your leadership with this group. As you all know, or might have heard, I grew up in Ventura County. I immigrated to this country when I was 5 years old with my family. We first moved to Arizona, where my father worked in an underground copper mine. And when that closed at the end of my 6th grade elementary school year, my father moved us to Oxnard, where I did my junior high and high school years. My father was a farm worker. When he moved us to Oxnard, he didn't have a formal education. So after the mine closed in Arizona, he went back to doing what he did in the 50s and the 60s during the guest worker program, the Bracero program. So I grew up in Ventura, Oxnard to be exact, worked my summers with my father in the fields, was lucky enough to have done well in school. And I went to UCSB, one of the schools that accepted me, and stuck around in the area. Met my wife along the way on a blind date in Los Angeles. Many people say she's still blind because she's still with me. But I have 2 wonderful kids. When I was at UCSB, I joined the United States Marine Corps. And early on, my early career in Santa Barbara was in the health and human service sector. Then I met this great lady who became a county supervisor. Her name was Naomi Schwartz. She hired me to be her chief of staff for 12 years. And when she decided not to run, I ran for supervisor and served 3 terms myself for 12 years. When Lois Capps retired, I ran for this office with her support and the support of many people. And I feel very privileged and honored to have served in Congress for the 24th Congressional District for 3 terms, now being elected, going to my 4th term. I represented the 24th Congressional District up until this election, which, as a result of redistricting and reapportionment, they moved the district south a little. So now I represent, which I did not represent before, the entire city of Ventura, as you all know, the entire city and surrounding area of Ojai, and they took away the northern part of the district, Paso Robles, Atascadero, and Cambria. I am grateful for the district I had before, and I'm equally grateful for the new district I have. As you all know, it was a nonpartisan commission that put forth the maps that we are now abiding by. And so I look forward to continuing to represent this new district and be as vigorous of a representative, accessible, and a good listener for the areas of Ventura and Ojai that I will now be representing. The vote Tuesday showed that I won with 60+% of the vote, and I'm excited to be able to continue working on the issues that our country and the Central Coast is facing. Increased costs and inflation, groceries, for gas, childcare, housing, to address some of the challenges that the region faces, drought, wildfires, and again, housing, to make sure that we are providing for everybody to be able to live that American dream that we all want to live. I am very grateful to have served in this past Congress, which has been one of the most productive Congresses since the 40s. And we moved forward a lot of very important legislation, a good part of it bipartisan legislation. During the pandemic, I'm sure you're all aware that we moved forward about 5 or 6 economic relief packages. All but one were bipartisan, and that helped us stay afloat during a very challenging economic time. But we all know that inflation is global. We have inflation in Australia, England, for example, Germany, other countries, just to remind us that it is global. And the supply chain disruption during the pandemic is a great part of what caused that supply and demand that created a lot of this inflation, not to mention the unprovoked aggression by Russia against Ukraine and the challenges that has posed for the grain production by Ukraine and what have you. So long story made short, in addition to the ARPA, we moved forward the bipartisan infrastructure law that, again, bipartisan, I want to underscore that, which is going to invest and modernize our infrastructure, roads, bridges, expand our connectivity, broadband, water infrastructure, public transit. It is going to not only modernize our infrastructure, but create jobs to help our economy. We also passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is doing a number of things. It's investing, making the biggest investment we've ever made in addressing climate change in our country, that is going to go a long way in helping us transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And along the way, continue to create jobs and create the infrastructure for electrification of charging stations, the manufacturing of electric vehicles, and make sure that we are moving towards a green economy. And in addition to that, we are also giving Medicare the ability to negotiate with Big Pharma to bring down prescription drug costs for all recipients on Medicare, and also impacting the market, which will impact the rest of Americans throughout our country. In addition to that, we saw the vulnerabilities that we all experienced during this pandemic. We were dependent for our computers, our phones, our cars, our appliances on semiconductor chips. And we, in a bipartisan fashion, moved forward the CHIPS Act, the Chips and Science Act, that is going to bring the semiconductor manufacturing and other high technological products back to our country. And along the way, create jobs and make sure that we have research and development hubs throughout the country so that we're not in that vulnerable position again. For the first time in 30 years, we passed the most meaningful gun violence safety laws, which included my bill, the Extreme Risk Protection Order Act, or in other words, red flag bill, that saved lives by giving families, loved ones, the ability to work with law enforcement and the courts to take guns temporarily away from individuals who seem to pose or are behaving that they'll pose a danger to themselves or others. and I'm very proud of that law as well. We've also passed, in closing, the CHIP Act, which will actually, not the CHIP Act, the PACT Act, that will provide the most significant suite of benefits to veterans in decades, to those individuals who were exposed to toxic environments during their service in war and out of war, and once and for all, provide them the healthcare benefits that they deserve. You know, I could go on and on and on, but after a while, your eyes are going to roll and you're going to fall asleep. I'd rather just open it up to you for any questions you might have. But let me conclude by saying that I look forward to representing the Ventura area and the new parts of my district as aggressively as I can. And I plan on being visible along with my staff and being of service to provide the best constituent service and the best representation that I can in Washington. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Gregg.
Great, thank you. So Karen's going to handle the chat, so people can put some questions into there. And while I'll stall out here for a little bit, Salud, can you tell me how big is your district mileage-wise?
Oh boy, you're challenging me now to know. All I know is, if you know the district, it's from going from Ventura all the way to Santa Margarita, which is right over the grade in San Luis Obispo, beyond San Luis Obispo. So I would say mileage-wise, I'm not sure, but
245.
time-wise,
Yeah,
time-wise, I want to say it's going to be about 3 hours from Ventura all the way to Santa Margarita.
That's a big district.
So it's quite a bit, but now you stumped me.
Okay, well, maybe this will be easier. So Gregg asks also, can you talk about any federal efforts to address the drought, such as desal?
Absolutely. Well, the bipartisan infrastructure law provides billions of dollars to help with our water security. It provides for infrastructure to be built, whether it's the state aqueduct or whether it's local communities working to provide recycle, reuse, injection, different ways to expand and diversify our water security in various counties. As you know, in California, we have quite interesting water law. It used to be that if you could put a straw in the property you own, you could use that water. That's how it used to be once upon a time. Recently, the state of California passed SIGMA, which requires communities that have overdraft water basins to come up with a sustainability plan. What we did as the federal government was put forth billions of dollars so that communities have the resources to expand their various water supplies and provide for water security in their area. So it's up to local communities to apply for those funds for expansion of their infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. And Dan says, you've always worked in a bipartisan manner. What issues do you think you may be able to help get passed in the next 2 years?
Well, I don't need to tell you that it's a little fluid right now. There's not a clear sense of what the outcome of the election is, the final outcome is going to be. It looks like the Senate is going to remain in Democratic hands, more likely than not. It looks like more likely than not, we might lose the House, but only by a few seats. The point being is we likely are going to have a divided government on some level. I am part of the bipartisan caucus, problem solvers, and the Four Country Caucus made up of veterans and Republicans and Democrats. And I think we'll continue to work together to come up with common ground frameworks to offer to our majorities on both sides of the aisle when we reach a stalemate. For instance, when we reach a stalemate on infrastructure, the bipartisan infrastructure law was modeled after the proposal we put forward from the Problem Solvers Caucus. So we'll continue to work on the big ticket items, be they immigration, be their infrastructure, be their healthcare, be their tax reform. I think we'll be able to address many of those issues if we have a divided government. And I'll continue to work on with my colleagues to find common ground, to put forward solutions that hopefully can bring both parties together and work off of a template that has already been hashed out by a good number of us on both sides of the aisle.
Karen, you're muted.
Sorry, the dog was barking. Okay, so Wendell has a tough question here. We move oil all over the country. Why can't we pipe adequate water into California?
There, that is, I've heard that before. I think, it what it does is that statement and question challenges us to think of what we need to do if we have to. But I think establishing a pipeline is something that would have to be done from an interstate standpoint. We haven't been able to solve our water challenge in the Delta between agriculture, urban users, and the environmental challenges that exist there. And we want, and I know it sounds easy, but to have a big pipeline to come in it's got to come from somewhere, the Colorado River or somewhere. And when it comes to water rights, water is like gold. It creates for a lot of complicated water policy. And it sounds easier. It's easier said than done. But I think that before we can get into bringing water into our state and into our region, we need to maximize our own collaboration and coordination amongst various units of government and diversify our water supplies, whether it's desalinization, if they can come up with the best desal environmentally friendly technology, because desal brings a lot of environmental challenges with it. But there's reuse to take water and purify it in a way that you can drink it, reclamation water, to be able to re-inject, to get more surface water when it rains. There's a lot we can do to diversify and achieve better water security. But certainly, why? My answer is I wish it was easier than it really is to do that. It sounds easy, but it's a little bit more complicated.
Okay, thank you. So we've got some tough questions for you here. Roxanne asks, climate change is an urgent humanitarian crisis, and we haven't done enough as a country to reduce emissions. The IRA starts to get us there, but science is showing it won't be enough. Do you have any plans to address climate change during the next term beyond the Inflation Reduction Act?
Well, again, a divided government puts us in, if that is the outcome, in a minority. So, getting something through will require both parties to find common ground. Let me tell you the area that I hope to be able to make some progress in that area. I belong to the Climate Solutions Caucus, made up again of Republicans and Democrats. And, there is a carbon fee tax, free market framework that exists, that Canada has implemented. And it's been working good. That is a market-based framework that was actually introduced by Republicans years ago. And why do some conservatives like that? Because they think it's market-based and you put a price on carbon. And you by doing that, it causes automatic reduction in emissions and retrofitting of new technology by various power plants, by various sectors. And what it does is you take the money that you accumulate from the fee and the tax on carbon, and you give it back to the American people, or you invest it in something like education to provide free higher education, or you put it and reinvest it in our infrastructure. There's so much we can do to, one, achieve more continued progress on reducing emissions and provide the dividends back to the American people in some very constructive form. So I'm going to continue to fight and work towards the carbon fee and tax program.
Okay, great. Thank you. And David asks, are you seeing results from new housing laws and incentives over the last 5 years to encourage less expensive housing?
Yes and no. Yes, because again, the federal government provides funds and the state and the local governments have to actually implement it. Now, I think we need to do a better job of working together. We provide the funds, but unless we really push the state and local governments to compel them to provide more housing opportunities, we're going to fall short. And we've done that time and time again. We don't want to change the character of communities, but within that principle, we need to be able to provide more housing stock for working people, workforce housing. And I don't think that we've done a good enough job over the years, but we could always do better. Have we seen some progress? Yes. Has it been satisfactory and adequate? No. So the question is, can we at the federal government, as we provide the resources to state and local governments for housing, should we be a little bit more prescriptive? Should we be a little bit more carrot and the stick and say, you want this money, you need to provide more progress on housing? That's a good question for us to consider.
Okay, so we have a lot of different questions here. So Dennis asks, is there any hope of any real immigration reform in the next 2 years?
With a divided government, maybe not. But I have heard that during this lame Congress, assuming we're lame, in the next 4 weeks, could lend itself to a little bit of progress. Not comprehensive immigration reform, but maybe on a couple of bipartisan bills that we've been able to achieve in the House of Representatives. They're at the Senate right now. One is the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, and the other one is the Dream and Promise Act. The Farm Workforce Modernization Act is the one that has a more likelihood of moving forward. I have been informed that in the Senate, there's an interest finally to consider moving a similar piece of legislation like the Farm Workforce Modernization Act forward, which if it does, might lend itself to a success for that piece of legislation. Let me tell you what it is. This legislation would provide a pathway for legal work in the United States for those that are here working illegally or as undocumented individuals in the agriculture sector. But it would provide a legal path for them and their families to come out of the shadows and work without fear of being deported, and eventually a pathway to become permanent residents, and then a pathway to become citizens someday, years from now. We're talking 10 to 15 years to complete that entire process. That would provide stable labor for our agriculture sector. And the other thing it does is that modernizes and reforms our H-2A program, thereby creating a modern day guest worker program. Now, let me tell you who supports this. It's bipartisan. The United States Chamber of Commerce supports it. The United Farm Workers support it. The Western Growers supports it. And so does the California Farm Bureau. So go figure. A very broad coalition of bedfellows is behind this legislation. And we seem to be getting a little bit of traction in the final days of this Congress in the Senate. So let's keep our fingers crossed. I don't know about next Congress, but we're still not done with this Congress. And I'm hopeful that we might be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mary asks, will there be an increase in mental health care?
Hold on. There we go. I lost you guys for a minute. Yes. Well, we just passed a number of increases to mental health care through the Safer Communities Act, which provides not only the red flag grant program that I mentioned earlier, but it increases mental health investment for our communities to address violence and gun violence in our schools, provide mental health services for our children in our schools and communities alike. That in itself is a huge investment. I believe it's 250, I want to say $1 million to increase mental health services throughout the country.
Okay, so Gregg always has the interesting questions. He asks, what do you think about Elon Musk and the Twitter drama? Elon
Musk is drama. You know, I think that'll work its way through. Clearly, Elon has been advocating for some political views and using that as a megaphone to do that. And it's a private company, so we need to see, you know, one, recognize that it is a private company. Certainly, do I like some of the things he's doing? No. But, you know, if there are any monopoly or any issues that need to be addressed through legislation, certainly I'd be open to that. But other than disagreeing with him, I'm disappointed that he has the views he has, and he's doing some of the things he's doing, and he's laid off a huge amount of workforce that is relying on compensation to provide for their families. And he did it very callously. It's my understanding he did it on some email or text.
Okay, thank you for that. And let's see, Bert asks, with 300 citizens dying a day from fentanyl overdosing, what is the plan to address this issue?
Well, that's an issue that I think we need to come together in a bipartisan way and fund more. There's two issues. One, you need to fund it at the source in terms of what's happening, the medical issues, the type of, what do you call those? The medication that you can inject to address it. What's that?
Narcan?
Yes, we need to provide more of that. But what we need to do is interdict it and get it at the border. So we need to provide more technology, more boots on the ground, and to make sure we're providing more interdiction and not allowing that to come into our country from our borders. A lot of fentanyl is coming in from China through various borders, some through our southern border, but through other countries, reaching through our southern border. Some are coming all the way around from some of the Central American countries, all the way around into California through our waterways, not even through the traditional border like you think. It's not like you think that they're just coming through the border. It's through our waterways, through every which way. We need to provide a more strategic plan that is funded with technology and boots on the ground to make sure that we're interdicting more of that substance coming into our communities.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to skip over Dan's question because he's had a similar question already. And Bobby asks, with environmental issues being important to Californians and solar and electric cars increasing in numbers, what measures are being taken on the expected increasing disposal of the panels, batteries, et cetera, as they increase because they need to be replaced?
Well, that's a very good question, because that is a very legitimate issue. You know, as we move towards renewable energy and battery storage and increase electric car vehicle manufacturing and charging stations infrastructure, that is one of the things that we need to address. Clearly, we're providing for investment in research and development through the CHIPS and Science Act, not only to manufacture semiconductor chips, but to provide for disposal, research, and development of that type of the batteries, to make sure that we're providing for a safer disposal. And we're doing it in our country and not shipping it out to other countries, and provide an environmental challenge in other areas. Certainly, that is something we have been working on and will continue to work on, because we need to have our own solutions and not ship our waste to other countries.
Okay, thank you. And I think this is our last question from Gregg. Will the January 6th committee be able to continue its work in a divided government?
If my colleagues on the other side of the aisle take over the House, that will come to a definite end. So if they don't, I think there might be some leadway to conclude it beyond this Congress. But I think there's an effort to conclude those efforts this Congress anyways. But I think that it likely will not move beyond this Congress, especially if the leadership of the House changes hands.
So great. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know this must have been a long week for you, obviously, with the election and everything else going on. Are you on the West Coast right now, or are you back east?
I'm here on the West Coast. Okay. I'm in Santa Barbara tonight, and I know it took us a while to organize tonight. So instead of waiting yet another month to do this again, we decided it might be tough to do it late, but let's just do it, get it out of the way, so that we don't have you waiting, and we could see you again in the future and not feel we haven't had at least one interface.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate, look forward to working with you. And obviously we have our own issues to deal with here in Ventura County, and you grew up in this area. So thank you for taking the time and spending the evening with us.
Thank you, Gregg. And I look forward, myself and my staff, to interface with you, the Ventura community, and make sure that I'm aware of the concerns, the priorities that you feel are for our region, and to make sure that I am representing the region as best as I can in Washington. We'll continue to have good communication, and I look forward to interfacing and touching base with your group again in the future.
And Congressman, there's a lot of thank yous going on there, and this is Dan Long, and thank you so much for finding the time and being here with us as well. And there's a lot of thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Great, thank you. Good night. Appreciate it. So we're gonna jump. I saw Ed joined us a couple minutes ago, so we're gonna jump to the public safety portion of the meeting. So Commander Ed Caliento of the Ventura Police Department is going to update the crime activity for Midtown Ventura for the past month. So there he is. I'm assuming it looks like you're on a night shift, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I work until 10 o'clock.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it, and hope you're doing well.
Thank you very much. I got to see a little bit of the congressman. I wanted to get in for more, but I had to do a briefing. So I'm glad he got a chance to meet with you all. That's great. They took time out of his schedule. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. If anybody is a former Marine, happy birthday. It is a Marine Corps birthday today. So want to just go over the crime stats with you really quickly. We've had, it's been a basically busier time right now, and we usually start getting busier as it ramps up towards the holidays. We've had 12 thefts in the Midtown area this month, 7 aggravated assaults. Good news is, not good news, but these aren't random assaults. Most of these are domestic violence. Not good news, but it's, again, not some sort of random act. We've had 6 thefts from vehicles, which include vehicle burglaries. 6 commercial burglaries, 4 motor vehicle thefts, and 1 robbery. So just kind of going through those. Like I said, the majority of these assaults are domestic violence incidents. And we did have a fight at the Ventura Music Hall, which I think is the first one. That place has been pretty mellow, and I've looked at the venue and it's got some really good music. So it's been a good neighbor. So hopefully, if anybody lives near them, they've been a good neighbor for you too. We had Lemon Grove School got broken into twice. Nothing overly expensive taken, just food. Probably kids, probably the ones that don't go to school during the day. We've also had some of our shops get broken into. This is actually, again, kind of common during this time of year. Cash was stolen from a couple of them. A wallet was taken. Again, what I want to really reiterate is with the vehicle burglaries, please don't leave anything in your car that's of value. A couple of these were thefts from unlocked cars where wallet was taken. Some purse was taken, paperwork, checkbooks, ID cards. So again, make sure we're not leaving anything of value in our cars. Did have a couple more bike thefts, including a theft of 2 bikes and the vehicle roof rack. So, again, I don't want to make light of it, but it is true. If it's not bolted down, they will steal it. And that's about it.
Okay.
We did have a robbery. Looks like a robbery from a liquor store. No one was harmed. They just threatened and demanded money. So that's what we've got. And I see some questions.
Right. So we've got a couple questions from Debbie. Can you address what's being done to address the fentanyl?
So yeah, fentanyl has been a really big issue for us. And for those of you who don't know, fentanyl is a much more potent opioid. So it's a painkiller. It's a synthetic, and it's mostly made from chemicals. We've seen a ton of it coming out of Mexico. The problem with fentanyl is it's highly deadly. A very small amount can kill you. So basically what we've been doing, to try to help with overdoses is all of our officers are carrying naloxone, which is a opiate blocker. It's basically a nasal spray. If we do come upon somebody who's overdosing, they will administer the spray. We've all been trained on how to do that. And also, we're going after the drug dealers as best we can. Those of you know that our drug laws have been greatly reduced. The downside of that is we have a lot of people that are getting arrested for drug possession, but it's a minor misdemeanor and they're getting back out. So people aren't staying. And if you talk to some of the people we used to arrest back in the day, one of the things they did talk about is the good thing for jail for them was a chance to get clean and get services. People aren't staying in jail very long at all, sometimes 4 to 5 hours, and they're back out on the street. So that's really the biggest problem we're having with the fentanyl. If you see any sort of white powdery substance, please don't touch it. It's not going to harm you if you're just touching it, but if you do ingest it in some way, it can cause you to overdose.
Okay, and the next question is, do you have any suggestions about how to deter catalytic converter theft?
So obviously the best way to do it is park your car in a garage. The next best is to get some sort of mechanism. It's a cat blocker that if you think of this as your catalytic converter here, it goes over it and welds to the bottom of your car. That will deter because it takes longer for someone to cut it. It also depends on what car you have. Priuses are a big number one car where it's easy to steal the catalytic converter, and it's a very big catalytic converter. And so there's a lot more precious metals in there. Also, if you've got an F-150 or a bigger kind of raised vehicle, that's something you might want to look at, one of these cat blockers. It will not stop them. They can get through it. And yes, it does. You can get them. You can purchase them online, or you can purchase them through different mechanics, and they will put them on. I don't know exactly what it costs to put them on. I do know that there was a place, and I can't remember the name of it, up off the avenue. Real great guy. He's a muffler guy. His car got hit and he offered to put people's mufflers back on and these things for like $100 to $200. So I don't remember offhand the name of the shop, but it's right off the avenue. But if you talk to your mechanic and ask him, hey, how much would you charge to install this? It's going to be cheaper than having to replace your catalytic converter.
Okay. And then this is my question, can you tell us a little bit about the Family Justice Center and how you interact with them?
So how the law enforcement, so the Family Justice Center basically is at the courthouse. That's one you're speaking of, right?
Well, there's actually one on Loma Vista, right?
So, well, let me be more exact. What kind of interactions were you just thinking about?
Well, domestic violence,
Okay.
et cetera.
So yes, there's a branch one on Loma Vista now. It's a new one. We will refer people to it. It's a place where people who are victims of domestic violence or other sorts of violence in the home can go to get assistance. We don't usually, we sometimes bring people there, but not normally. Usually we're just giving people cards or giving them information. But it's an excellent resource if you know anybody that needs extra help. They can help with writing emergency protective orders or temporary restraining orders. They can also help kind of get goods and needs and services for people who are in need.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any last questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all. You have a very nice night.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you later.
Next month.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
So appreciate it. So the next we're moving on to our spotlight on nonprofits, and we're joined by Jill Santos. I see she joined us earlier. She's the Executive Director of the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council. Briefly, the organization's mission is to reduce the threat of wildfire to ranches, urban neighborhoods, and infrastructure through education and partnerships. It's been a while since I've seen Jill, so it's great to see her. And tell us more about the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everybody, for having me here. It's good to see you all. I feel like I've been kind of in a cave the last year or so. I was going to share my screen. So is that amenable to everything?
Yep. I'm working on it right now. So go see if that will let you take it.
Okay, perfect. And it's just a few slides and I will be very brief because I know that
Jill, you're okay. We're running okay on time. So do whatever you need.
Okay. So now I just have to figure out how to get to slideshow from the beginning. Tell me if y'all can see that.
Yep,
okay.
Looks good.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for having me here tonight. So I wanted to just give you a brief overview of what fire safe councils are. And it's funny. So I have recently got appointed to this position. If many of you might know me or might not, I've worked in both local government and I've worked in nonprofit. So this is my first gig as an executive director and I'm loving it. It's exciting. It's also a lot of hard work. So fire safe councils, when I go out and talk to people, a lot of people don't even know that they exist or what they do. So they started as a project out of the Cal Fire in 1993. Obviously, that was before we were having these mega fires that we're currently experiencing. And now there's over 270 in the state of California. And typically what fire councils do is they're nonprofit organizations, and sometimes they're just volunteer organizations, but sometimes they go for their full nonprofit status. They help with a lot of different things, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail tonight on each one of these things: community wildfire protection plans, home hardening, fuels mitigation projects. We are going for Firewise communities, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Ventura County Wildfire Collaborative as well, so everyone can get an understanding about what's going on here in Ventura County. So let's just start with this. We're at the 5-year mark when the Thomas Fire came through our county at record pace 5 years ago. It swept through the county. It took structures. It took lives. It impacted our quality of life, our economy. It cost over $2 billion in response and recovery. And about almost half of the people who had lost their properties have still not been able to move fully back into their properties after 5 years. And it was quickly surpassed by so many other fires. And then we had, Paradise, and you can see what it's like to lose an entire community. So fire safe councils are really trying to step up with all of the other firefighting science professionals, emergency professionals, and really take advantage of this moment when both federal, state government have all of their eyes and ears on this issue, and lots of federal dollars, state dollars are coming into our region to help mitigate some of these threats. So community wildfire protection plans are the first step. You have to have a plan in place in order to go out and seek funding. It doesn't mean that you can't seek funding, but it means that if you have projects already identified based on risk and need, you're more likely to get those funds. And so far, in the last 5 years, our Fire Safe Council alone has brought in nearly $750,000 into the county to help with some of these efforts that I'm going to talk about. So wildfire protection plans, the last one that we had here for the county was done in 2010. And so our organization got the grant to update that. And we're in the process of doing that right now. Done a lot of research. They're very collaborative. They're meant to bring in a lot of diverse voices, but they're also meant to be a planning tool. They're meant to identify those risks and prioritize those projects. But we do want diverse community input. And so over the course of 2023, through the Wildfire Collaborative, we will be hosting town halls in which public comment can be, obtained for these plans. And again, the whole point for these plans is so that all wildfire and emergency professionals can point to what's inside the plan and say, this is a priority project. We've already identified it as a need, and it makes it more likely we'll get in funding. Another thing that fire safe councils do is we do home hardening programs. And home hardening is essentially activities that can be done in and around your home. And we focus on Zone 0. So many of you may be aware of the Defensible Space Program that the fire department has done for many years. This is a little bit different. Zone 0, and there's new rules and new regulations coming out from Zone 0 based off of the Institute for Business and Home Safety. They've been doing a lot of studies and showing that home hardening actually it scientifically can prove to reduce the risk of wildfire. So we have a trained staff that will come out to your property for free and give you an assessment. And that assessment will give you recommendations that range from little to no effort to little to no cost to a lot more extensive and a lot more expensive, depending on what it is. But we primarily focus on simple things like changing out your vents, looking at your eaves, making sure your gutters are clean, and getting rid of ladder fuels and any sort of built up fuel load in and around that first zero, that Zone 0 around your household. And what the science is actually saying is that because the climate conditions have changed so much in the West, wildfires have changed dramatically in the last decade. And not just the flame front is not the issue. The flame front, the ember casts can move at least a mile or more away ahead of the flame front. And so if you think about it, if there's anything flammable and there's like a corner or there's a fence or there's something where those embers are coming and they can fall down and break up, this is how a house can catch on fire. And the IBHS has shown that if embers are able to take hold into the Zone 0, there's a 90% chance that the structure will go. And so if you have done your work, but your neighbors have not done their work, then there's a 90% chance that your house will go. So we're working really hard and very diligently at trying to get our community to take advantage of this free service. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful to get this information out to you all tonight. We come out, we give you a recommendation, takes about an hour, doesn't cost anything. The information is completely confidential. Now, what we're hoping for and what we're working towards and what the state is working towards is getting homeowner insurance premium reductions and or just preventing folks from being kicked off of their homeowner's insurance or having the premiums become simply unaffordable. There is a nationally recognized program. There's actually two, Fire Adapted Communities and FireWise. And we're actually we've gotten some training to become FireWise communities. Once a community is able to do this, they have been able to show premium reductions and the insurance companies are recognizing them. We participate in a regional working group called, I'm going to call it WRAP, but I don't know what it stands for. wildfire resilience. I don't know what the A stands for, but it's through United Policyholders, and they have been doing all of the advocacy, and they've been working with the state insurance office to get these kinds of things to occur. So this is really good stuff. So it starts with just calling our office and saying, even if you're not in the WUI, even if you're not right there up against the wildland urban interface, remember that those embers can travel over a mile in front of the flame front. So you can come and get an assessment. We can do it for you. We can give you those recommendations. Then you can choose to do what you want to do with those recommendations. And we're working with 2 different funders right now to pilot 2 different versions, whether a subsidy or a rebate program is something that might work. So a subsidy program we're piloting in the Thousand Oaks area, specifically for home-based seniors or fixed income folks who may not be able to physically be able to go out and do all of this chipping or brush removal work. We've got some grant funding, or piloting what it's like to do a subsidy specifically for seniors. We also do have we have funding available for anybody who was a Thomas fire impacted. It doesn't have to be a victim. You didn't have to lose your home. You didn't even have to lose half your home. But if your house was somehow impacted by the Thomas fire and you haven't had the ability to get and do all of the work that you need to do around your house, you should contact us, because we have some funding available, probably in the form of a rebate, where if you were able to get some brush work or brush removal work done on your property, we're going to be able to reimburse you. And that comes through the Ventura County Community Foundation. We also work on fuels mitigation projects. Now, there's different ways of treating landscapes to reduce their flammability. For instance, our partner organization up in Ojai, the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council, they are really, I would say, experts at the concept of using rotational grazing as a means to reduce fuel loads. We're also in the process. A lot of my partners that I work with are working on a prescribed burn association. And there is some debate about whether or not prescribed burning works well in this veg type down here. However, that there are applications maybe in ranches and other large parcels where prescribed burning would actually work. And then we have chipper and mastication. We just received some funding actually to do some chipper days for residents. It would be like a curbside chipper program where we're actually getting an app, and people can schedule and say, yes, I have brush to remove. The app automatically routes the chipper as it moves through the neighborhood. So we're reducing vehicle miles traveled, and we're able to go around and just chip the material and leave it at the driveway. And then that homeowner can reuse it and apply it outside the zone 0 as a mulch, which is helpful for moisture retention. And then just general brush removal. So again, these are types of projects that are either at the landscape scale or very down at the very property level. But at the landscape scale, those would go into a community wildfire protection plan. And down at the property level would be part of your home hardening program that you're trying to do to maintain. Firewise communities, this is where our North Star is. I feel like this is where I want our organization to go. There are Firewise communities in Los Angeles County and in Santa Barbara County and San Luis Obispo County, and there's like 2 in Ventura County. And they do receive a higher designation, higher recognition from insurance companies. And generally, the Firewise communities are the communities that are demonstrating that they are going to be able to be adapted to and learn to live with fire. There's a certain amount of requirements need to happen. You need to have you have to need to define your boundary. A lot of times, Firewise communities can show up in like an HOA or a condo association because they want to define boundary. They sort of want a charter. They want a plan. They want an O&M plan. They want to show some sort of repeated effort over it. You don't just get it once and then let it go. So it's a really interesting program. We got one of our staff members trained in this, and we're going to start rolling it out. We're working with, I think actually we've reached out to the Clear Point, Ondolando, and all the neighborhoods up on the hillsides to actually maybe see if that's a pilot project where we could start for our county. And I did mention we're part of a diverse group of stakeholders we work with. Right now, there's 2 fire safe councils in the county that actually have their nonprofit status. And then there's several emerging fire safe councils. And we've partnered up with the Ventura County Resource Conservation District, as well as the Ventura County Fire Department. And then there's a diverse mix of stakeholders that sit on various levels of coordinating committees. And essentially, the intention is to raise this issue, raise the conversation conversation and get more people talking about it. We just had a lovely few days of cold weather and rain. It's easy for people to think that fire is going to come, but it will come back. And so in 2023, I think there's one hosted for December coming up, but most of 2023, we're going to have town halls in every one of the jurisdictions throughout the county. And we're also bringing in a pretty large wildfire summit, which is going to probably be like more of a regional thing. Like folks probably even from the West and Midwest might come to this event in 2023. Got some funding to do that. We're also doing a more smaller kind of virtual thing of a speaker series on a regular basis as well. And if you want to get all that information, you can go to either our website or to the Resource Conservation District's website, and you're going to have all that information out there. But this is what it means, is that this is an all hands on deck moment. I don't want to sound like, Chicken Little here, but this is an important issue. And I really hope that most people are really thinking about what they can be doing to be more prepared. I think the fire department would be really, really stoked if most of us, the majority of us, were able to confidently leave our homes if we got an evacuation order and feel that we had done everything that we needed to do so that they can go in and do their job to defend our community. Really, that's all I wanted to share with you. I will say that we are having an event next Thursday, and we still have some reservation spots. If anybody likes to drink Four Bricks Winery, if you like their wine, I recommend you come 6 to 9 p.m. next Thursday, and we'll have music there and a little bit of food. And actually, this gentleman Bob Roper, who I believe is a Ventura County resident, I haven't yet met him in person. He also is the Deputy Director for California Fire Safe Council, and he also recently got appointed to Biden's federal task force on wildfire. He will be at the event speaking. And I'm just here to answer questions if y'all have any questions.
Okay, so we do have a few questions. So I'm not sure I totally get this one, but Bert is asking about with the acquisition of the land above Ventura from the botanical gardens, is your group involved in helping make this area a fire safe area? And I guess it's the area between the botanical gardens and Two Trees.
Yeah, and I just heard about that acquisition. We have done community. So not in addition to the county-wide community wildfire protection plan, we also were sanctioned to do on this round 6 localized plans, and then in the next round of funding there will be another 5. And so so think of them as like those Russian dolls that fit into each other. Like if we do the small community plans, they're supposed to fit inside the bigger county-wide plan. So we have done plans for the Two Trees property is at Rancho Ventura, right? Rancho Ventura Land Trust. And then we've done the Ventura Land Trust, which is basically Harmon Canyon. Those 2 plans have been drafted and they were up for public comment. I don't think they're still up on our website, but yes, we will be engaging. And I literally just reached out to the folks at the Botanic Garden, but I need to follow up with them because I think it is, it's an important connection.
Okay, then we have a couple questions about the assessments, like how do we get them, and are they available to anybody in Ventura or only in certain zones? And then specifically, are they available to flatlanders?
Like I said, I think we're prioritizing obviously high risk neighborhoods right now, but our signups, it's been like throwing spaghetti on a wall and seeing what sticks. We haven't quite figured out which outreach method is going to be our way, because we haven't been getting we haven't been able to get into one neighborhood and do an entire neighborhood at once yet. And that's our dream. So yes, anyone can pretty much sign up for a home hardening assessment. You can, I didn't put our phone number up there. Oh God, am I going to remember 73? I can say what the phone number is. If people want to call the number, you can do it that way. And I can give you an email address, which I didn't put up there either, but I can say it out loud and I can put it in the chat before I'm done. Yes. You can go on to venturafiresafe.org and click on the home hardening link, and that can get you there. You can email me directly and that will get you there. Or I will put the phone number and the email address, general email address, if you want that. And I can put that in the chat. Essentially what happens is we have for the estimated 70,000 parcels that we need to assess, we have 3 staff members funded currently. So We are working really hard to get those done. Yeah, you just call and make an appointment. If you're good at filling out online forms, you'll be really good at that. And then we'll get back to you and come on out, and they're free, like I said, and it's all confidential information. I know some people are concerned about, because of the issue with the homeowners insurance, we give you the report and we don't do anything else with the database. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, and then Greg asks also, who provides your funding?
A mix. And it gets confusing because sometimes I don't know, like we'll get a more regional funder and it actually is coming from a federal source. So I'll say who I know and I might not know where it actually comes from because some of it's coming from huge federal funds. But right now, like mostly CAL FIRE, California Fire Safe Council. We just got some money, bless their Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, California State Conservancy funds us. Ventura County Community Foundation has been very generous to us. Casca over in Thousand Oaks. SCE, I could be remiss if I didn't recognize them. They are wonderful funders and they've been great supporters of our work. I'm probably missing some people, but those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, then thank you. So we have some thank you. These are from Roxanne. These are incredible programs. Thanks for your efforts and thanks for sharing. And then from Robert, the MVCC is looking into undergrounding electric power lines around the hillside areas where the fire previously burned. Do you support this? And do you have any suggestions for seeking funding?
I got to read this. Is looking for underground electric power lines around the hillside. I guess personally, I wouldn't say that the organization, I can't speak for the organization. And I just heard them bring up this issue when I was at a town hall in Oak Park. And so I am not very aware of what this really means, but what I do think it means is that if we put the power lines underground, we have less of a chance of them sparking and catching fires. And that's basically what they were alluding to at the Oak Park presentation. They were saying, because that's such a new community, they have a better water supply system that, won't go down in an emergency, and they've got their power lines underground, and it makes their community in some ways safer. So it seems to me like a logical thing, but I am not an expert in that at all.
Okay, well, thank you for taking a stab at that. Any last questions here?
The event. Yeah, so please come and have a glass of wine on us. We're going to be at 4 Bricks Winery in Ventura from 6 to 9. I think there's going to be a fire truck there. There's going to be all of our staff and this gentleman, Bob Roper, who is I think he's really keyed in. If you're interested in learning about what's going on in wildfire, both regionally and nationally, it's going to be a good talk.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Jill, thank you so much.
All right.
I appreciate it. And best of luck to you. I really do hope that folks that especially live in the hills that take advantage of the resources, right? As you said, it's free resources that you're providing that they can help harden their homes.
Yes. And we would love people to take advantage of it.
Great. Well, thank you, Jill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So right now we've got a couple of housekeeping items that I want to talk about. Was the City of Ventura passed along a slide. Let's see where it's at. They wanted to just give a quick update in regards to, there we go. Sorry about that. The couple things that they did want to share was they're going to have some meetings coming up. Is everybody able to see that for the most part?
No.
Okay. Let's share this. Come on.
Says Gregg Mansfield has started screen sharing. There it goes.
Yeah, there it goes. I think the hamsters are not happy right now with the Zoom. So anyway, if everybody can see it off the board, what they're 2 things that they have is that they're trying to get some folks to encourage folks to join a city. Okay, here we go. So they want folks to join the city boards, committees, or commissions. And then on the west side, they're going to have a housing forum coming up on November 16th. And then just to let people know that they are going to have Spanish interpretation at city council meetings for the next 6 months. And then the other worthy bit of news from them is the GPAC meeting. Next one is coming up on Tuesday, November 15th at 6 p.m. So with that, I wanted to ask if the board members, if you have any announcements or that you want to bring up. We were hoping to get the deputy mayor here, but they are running long on the meeting. So Dan, do you have any meetings or announcements from you?
No, nothing really at this time.
Okay. Any other board members? Do we have any announcements? Sounded quiet. So how about committee members? Anybody in the community have any announcements? Bobby, go ahead. You always save me.
Well, I always seem to have something going on. So when I come to the meeting,
Yeah.
But in case any of you didn't know that December 10th is the International Day of Human Rights. Okay. And it was a day that was established by the United Nations to commemorate the adoption of the milestone document, which is the Declaration of Human Rights. And we are going to be having an event, an open house from 1 to 3. And a couple of the guest speakers that are coming. The first is the Imam Mahtar of the Conejo Valley Islamic Center. And then Bepo Tolku, who is a Buddhist monk who served the Dalai Lama. He's from Tibet, and he is a human rights activist. We have some other speakers as well that are in the human rights arena that will be presenting, and this event is open to anyone who is interested in forwarding human rights.
Great. And you said that's December 10th?
December 10th from 1 to 3, and it's at 2151 Alessandro Drive, which is our address.
Great. Thank you, Bobby. Mark, I saw you raised your hand. You want to go?
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I just want to add that GPAC meeting next Tuesday is an extremely important one. They're going to release the findings of the land survey, the land use survey, and plan next steps. So if you're at all interested in what type of development is planned or going to be planned for Midtown or anywhere in the city, it's a good meeting to attend.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Have you been following it pretty closely?
Reasonably close.
Reasonably close. As close as you can with those on that one. So any other community announcements? Okay, not seeing any. So the other things I wanted to let you know is we will have looks like we're going to have our holiday party on December 9th at Aphrodite on Main Street. We will be sending out invites and let everybody know because I think we're going to need some RSVPs so we know how much food to get. So just want to let everybody, thank everybody for coming out tonight, giving up part of your time. If you missed something tonight, a video of tonight's meeting will be up on our website this weekend, up on our YouTube channel. So as I said, hopefully if everybody can spare some time, we'll see you on December 9th for a couple hours over at Aphrodite's. So thanks again for turning out and appreciate it. Have a good night.